Imagine this for a second. You log into a video game, right? But inside this world, you're not just fighting monsters or exploring dungeons. You're browsing real-world clothing brands, you're discovering new products, and you can unlock actual physical items just by playing the game. No more static websites, no more clicking add to cart. That's the wild idea behind a project called Highstreet, and it's basically trying to completely flip the script on how we shop online.
Okay, so let's break down how this is all supposed to work. It's pretty much a three-step vision. First, you just explore this huge immersive world, kind of like you would in any big online game. Then, while you're in there, you start finding and interacting with real brands. And finally, and this is the crazy part, you can actually buy physical things that get shipped to your real-life house, all by doing stuff inside the game. It's a massive shift from just clicking buttons on a web page.
But, this whole idea immediately brings up a huge, maybe even uncomfortable question we have to tackle. Is a project like Highstreet giving the metaverse a genuine second shot at life? Or are we just trying to pump air back into a balloon that the market has already popped?
To really get what Highstreet is trying to pull off, we first need to wrap our heads around the economic engine it's running on. They call it phygital. Yeah, phygital. And honestly, understanding this one word is the key to figuring out if this whole experiment has a fighting chance.
So, phygital, it's exactly what it sounds like, a mashup of physical and digital. It means that when you buy something, it exists in two places at once. You get the digital version, probably as an NFT, for your avatar to wear in the game, and you get the actual physical thing delivered to your door. All of a sudden, the metaverse isn't just a game anymore. It's a giant, interactive mall.
And this really lays out the difference. On one side, you've got the online shopping we all know. You go to a website, you browse, you click, you check out. It works, but it's pretty passive. On the other side is this phygital model that Highstreet is proposing, where just the act of shopping becomes part of the game, part of the adventure.
Okay, now for the reality check, the elephant in the room. Before we can even begin to guess at Highstreet's chances, we've got to take a hard look at what happened to the first big metaverse hype train. Because it didn't end well.
Remember 2021? The metaverse was the next big thing. The hype was absolutely off the charts, money was pouring in, everyone was promising these incredible virtual worlds. But then, by the middle of 2022, that interest just fell off a cliff. And today, the conversation has cooled way, way down. The boom was fast, but man, the bust was even faster. So what happened? Why did it fizzle out so quickly? Well, it really boils down to three big things. First, and this is the most important one, people just didn't show up and stick around. Second, the whole VR experience can still be pretty clunky and awkward for a lot of people. And third, you're competing against traditional video games that are already polished, fun, and have massive communities.
And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures the whole problem. The tech wasn't really the issue. It didn't fail because the code was bad. It failed because of adoption. People came, they took a look around, and they just left.
So, knowing all that, knowing the metaverse basically became a ghost town, let's bring it back to Highstreet. Because their biggest challenge, their make-or-break gamble, really isn't about technology at all. It's about people. This really breaks down the dilemma they're facing. For Highstreet to work, it needs tons of active users, but the reality is, most people aren't hanging out in the metaverse. It needs big brands to jump in and build stores, but for those brands, that's a huge risk. And maybe most importantly, it needs to convince all of us to develop totally new shopping habits. And let's be real, changing how people behave is one of the hardest things you can try to do.
And that really gets to the heart of it. The number one risk for a project like this isn't about the code, or the servers, or the graphics. It's cultural. Can you actually convince millions of people to fundamentally change the way they shop and the way they play? That is a monumental mountain to climb.
Now, this cultural challenge has a very real economic consequence. See, the whole system runs on a token called High, and there's a limited supply, only about 100 million of them. This token is the fuel for their whole virtual economy. You use it for pretty much everything. And here is the bottom line. The value of that token, the health of this entire project, it all depends entirely on real people actually using the platform. If nobody's logging in, playing, and most importantly, buying stuff, then there's no real demand, there's no real economy, the whole thing just grinds to a halt.
So, with that massive ambition on one side and these huge challenges on the other, what does the future actually hold for something like this? Let's game out the three most likely scenarios.
You're really looking at three very different paths. The best case positive scenario, the metaverse hype roars back, user numbers explode, and big brands all jump on board. Then there's the middle ground. Maybe it becomes a cool niche spot for a dedicated community of gamers and crypto fans. And then, well, there's the negative outcome. The whole idea just fades away and becomes another forgotten experiment from a past hype cycle.
When you boil it all down, it's probably best to think about Highstreet for what it is right now. A really bold experiment. It's a giant test to see if you can successfully merge the act of buying things with the fun of playing a game, and just completely blur that line between commerce and entertainment.
And that leaves us with the final big question. And honestly, the fate of this whole project really hinges on the answer. What do you think? Is the metaverse just hibernating, waiting for a big comeback? Or did it already have its one big moment in the sun? It's going to be fascinating to watch whichever way it goes.